Hello and welcome. Today we are going to be making soft and chewy brownies. I wanted these to retain their softness and be a little bit like fudgy brownies but without the undercooking it part. This recipe turned out exactly as I wanted it, so I'm sharing it with you. Before we get to the ingredients, let me take a moment to thank everyone who is watching these videos, and if you are enjoying this video and haven't already subscribed, please do for more videos like this. Now, for the ingredients. For our ingredients, we will need 1/2 of a cup of butter, softened, 1 tablespoon of cooking oil, 1 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 2 large eggs, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract or vanillin, 1/2 cup of flour, 1/2 cup of cocoa powder, and 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. There are 3 things we need to do before we start making the brownies. The first is to take the butter out of the refrigerator and let it sit on the counter to warm up. The second is to grease our 8x8 baking pan. I'm using shortening here, but butter, lard, or coconut fat would also work as well. You just want to get a light coating on the whole pan. Your brownies will stick a little bit, but once it's fully cooled, it should be easy to separate the brownies from the pan. And the third thing is we want to already start our oven preheating to 350 degrees. Now that everything is ready, we can start mixing our ingredients. We want to start with both of the sugars, the butter, and the eggs. We want to whisk some air into this while we break all of the butter down into small pieces. As long as your butter is warm, this shouldn't take more than a minute or two. Now, a fudgy brownie does not normally use any leavening agents, and while cakey brownies do, we're not going to be using any here. This means that any bubbles we want to help lighten our final product are pretty much going to have to be made here. Once all of the butter has been broken down and the mixture is noticeably lighter in color, we're ready to add the oil and the vanilla. We waited to add these in since they would have made the mixture retain air at a slower rate and would have made whipping it take longer. By adding them in now, we only need to whip it a tiny bit after they're mixed in to get all of our lost bubbles back. Now that we have a nice thin airy mixture, we are now ready to add the dry ingredients. Okay, now we will add the dry ingredients. While you are pouring the dry ingredients on, you want to spread them out as much as possible. They shouldn't really be going into the mixture yet, just gently sitting on top of it. The more even your layers are, the easier it is for you to fold them in without over mixing them. Now, I'm using a dough whisk, and these are made to help not overwork doughs, but I have found it also works great for when you want to gently mix the dry ingredients into a liquid with few bubbles lost. With one of these, you can mostly just gently stir, and it won't lose many bubbles at all, and the batter will not get overworked. If you don't have one like this, you can use a spatula to fold the dry ingredients into the wet. Just make sure you don't try to rush the mixing, and everything will work out fine as long as you're being gentle. Once it looks like this, we are ready to pour it into our pan. Now that we are all mixed, it is time to pour in the batter. You'll want a spatula here so you can scrape the sides of your bowl while you're pouring it into the pan. You want to spread it out with the pouring part as much as possible so that we limit the amount of time that we have to press down on it to fill the corners when we're done with the pouring part. If you notice some flour or cocoa powder that have not been fully mixed in while you're scraping the sides, as long as it's not a giant clump, it'll be fine. It'll just get baked into its nearest neighbors and you won't even notice it. Now that the whole batter is into our pan, we just gotta spread it gently outwards to fill all the sides and corners. You don't want to press down hard, just kind of drag the spatula along the top layer, and the stickiness of the batter will actually do about 90% of the work for you, while also not removing any or very minimal amounts of bubbles. The brownies are also going to spread a little bit during cooking, so you don't have to get it all the way filled out, but any filling you do will make the edges more even in size, so it does make it look better at the end. Once we are leveled, we just need to go into our oven that we preheated earlier to 350 degrees for 22 to 25 minutes. So first, sorry for the off-kilter camera, me and the tripod were not getting on very well that day. So while the brownies are baking in the background, let's talk about brownies. There are 2 major kinds of brownies, the fudgy type and the cakey types. The cake types are obviously a texture more like cake with tons of bubbles to make it lighter, less dense, and it generally also makes it a little bit drier. Fudgy brownies, on the other hand, typically have much fewer bubbles, tend to have a more gooey center. The gooey center is typically created by either slightly undercooking the brownies a bit, or by using chocolate bars broken up and mixed in to create pockets of thickened chocolate in the brownies. So, what is it we've made today? Well, kind of in between. It will be a touch lighter in texture than a typical brownie, and it will retain its moisture a bit longer due to the brown sugar. Now, if you like your brownies a bit more firm, you can swap the brown sugar for regular sugar, and it will dry the final product out just a little bit more, and it won't retain as much moisture. Once your 22 minutes are up, you'll want to start testing the brownies with a toothpick. When you insert the toothpick and it comes out slightly dirty but not dry, you're done. I've never seen this take longer than 25 minutes, so I would definitely not recommend going above that time. You'll want to let this cool for at least 20 to 25 minutes before slicing and serving. And with that, we have made soft and chewy brownies. It's a nice simple recipe and it doesn't take a lot of work. Homemade brownies are one of the baked goods that the taste is quite different from the ones you typically find in stores in the packaged mixes. If you do happen to like yours a bit denser than this one, just whip the sugar and eggs a little bit less for less air. And if you do happen to like yours more cakey than this one, you can add about 1/8 teaspoon of baking powder to this, and that'll make it even more airy and more cake-like. So with that, as always, I would like to thank you all for watching, and if you have not already subscribed and enjoyed this, subscribe for more like this, and have a great day and a great meal.